Salvete discipuli, hodie spectatis lectoram septimam capitis viginti septem. Irregular Comparison of Adjectives. Hodie discemus primum vocabula capitis viginti septem. Deinde grammaticam capitis. Irregular comparative and superlative adjectives, including ER and LIS adjectives, and then adjectives with different comparatives and superlative stems, otherwise known as irregular comparative and superlative adjectives. Okay, plus declining the adjective plus. Primum discemus verba vocabulorum capitis viginti septem. In hoc capite sunt duo verba, pono, probo. Primum verbum, pono, ponere, possui, possitum. Omnia ova una in corbe non ponenda sunt. Quid significat pono? Ultimum verbum, probo, probare, probavi, probatum. Cerealia prandialia, cix, appellata, a liberis matribusque probata sunt. Quid significat probo? Nunc discemus nomina vocabulorum capitis viginti septem. In hoc capite sunt tria nomina, delectatio, nepos, sol. Primum nomen, delectatio, delectationis. Ecce pictora, a pictora illo Hieronymo Bosch picta. Hortus delectationum terrestrium appellata. Quid significat delectatio? Proximum nomen, nepos, nepotes. Venere natus Aeneas ille heros Troianus erat, nepos Iovis ipsius. Romani autem se nepotes Aeneae appellabant. Quid significat nepos? Ultimum nomen, sol, solis. Ecce sol. Ecce sol noster. Quid significat sol? Nunc discemus adjectiva vocabulorum capitis viginti septem. In hoc capite sunt octo adjectiva: diligens, dissimilis, gracilis, humilis, quot, similis, superus, utilis. Primum adjectivum, diligens. Quid significat diligens? Proximum adjectivum, dissimilis, dissimile. Mala cum arancies non comparanda sunt. Ei enim duo fructus sunt dissimilimi. Quid significat dissimilis? Proximum adjectivum, gracilis, gracile. Philo gracilimo, gladius Damoclae suspenditor. Quid significat gracilis? Proximum adjectivum, humilis, humile. Draxus dicit se quoque humilium esse. Quid significat humilis? Proximum adjectivum, quot. Quot ova in corbe continentor? Quid significat quot? Proximum adjectivum. Similis, simile. Justinus capillos similes pastae rameni habebat. Quid significat similis? Proximum adjectivum. Superus, supera, superum. Si superis persuadere non possum, inquit uno in Aeneide Vergilii, in ferros movebo. Quid significat superus? Ultimum adjectivum. Utilis, utile. Quid est utilius? Pecunia aut sapientia. Okay, so last chapter we learned the degrees of adjectives. So just a review of those. Okay, so remember that in English, as in Latin, there are degrees of adjectives, and in English, we either use a suffix or we use the word more if it's 3 or more syllables in the adjective. So this is pretty straightforward, and we learned that, and we learned how to do it in Latin. In this chapter, we are going to complicate things a little bit because not every adjective in Latin has that follows that pattern. So we're going to introduce for the first part semi-irregular degrees of adjectives, which means that there's still regularity. It's just there's a certain class of third declension adjectives that have a different suffix in the superlative. Okay, so in the superlative for most adjectives, you have the issimus right, to mean the most or very something. Well, if you have a third declension adjective, specifically these, and they end in lis, okay, or le, so gracilis, humilis, facilis, difficilis, dissimilis, right, then instead of the issimus, you're going to have an illimus as your superlative ending. Okay, so gracilis means slender or thin, so gracilior is more slender or thinner, and then gracilimus would mean very thin, very slender. Okay, humilis, okay, meaning humble, humilior, more humble, humilimus, very humble, humblest. Facilis, facilior, okay, easy, easier, facilimus, easiest. Difficilis, difficilior, difficilimus, okay, hard, harder, hardest. Dissimilis or similis, dissimilior, dissimilimus, right? Most dissimilar, very similar, etc. Okay, so illim if we have an lis ending there instead of issim for the superlative. Okay. Also, remember those ER adjectives? We have examples of those for 212 adjectives as well as third declension adjectives. Look on the left here. Liber, libera, liberum for free. Pulcher, pulcra, pulcrum for beautiful. Keller, kelleris, kellera for fast. Okay, notice that in the masculine singular nominative it ends in ER. Well, when you put those into the superlative, you also have a different suffix, okay? So it would be liberimus, so erim, okay, if it's an ER adjective. Liberimus, most free, very free. Pulcherrimus, most beautiful, very pretty, etc. Celerimus, fastest, very swift, etc. Okay, so there you have it for that. All right, so now you know regular comparatives and superlatives. Now you know semi-irregular. Okay, now let's do irregular comparatives and superlatives. So basically, these are some of the most common adjectives we use in English or Latin. And the rule of language is that the more often a word is used, the more likely it is to become irregular in the process of linguistic evolution, right? And so let's start with English. Okay, so in English, we have a small group of adjectives that have completely different forms in the comparative and superlative. The word good is the positive form, better in the comparative, best in the superlative. So it's not good, gooder, goodest, it's good, better, best. So it's an irregular comparative superlative in English. Same with the word bad. Bad, it's not bad, badder, baddest, it's bad, worse, worst. Okay, it's the same for many. Okay, many is a positive degree, and so the comparative is more and superlative is most. Okay, so English has those, and so does Latin. So let's start with the word for good, bonus, bona, bonum. Okay, the comparative is melior, melius. Of course, it looks nothing like bonus, but it's the comparative of bonus. Okay, so melior is better. Okay, and then the superlative, it looks nothing like the either two. It's optimus aum. Okay, for best or most good or very good. Okay, so bonus, melior, optimus. Okay, bad. Malus in the positive becomes peor in the comparative, and in the superlative is pessimus. Okay, at this point, you're probably thinking of some derivatives so far. So bonus, melior, you have ameliorate, and optimus, obviously optimize. Malus, okay, peor, we get the word like pejorative. And then pessimus, pessimist, right? Optimist, pessimist. So luckily, these are often forms that you also get English derivatives from to help you out. So it's not just a completely new vocab word. Same with magnus, okay, for big or great. Major, maius, means bigger or greater, like major, right? Or majority. Okay, and then maximus aum for biggest or greatest. Okay, maximus, maximize, right? And then small is parvus aum in the positive, and then in the comparative it's minor minus. So minor, right? The minor leagues versus the major leagues, right? The bigger leagues, the greater leagues versus the smaller, okay, less great leagues. And then minimus aum is smallest or most small or least. Okay, so minimal, minimize. We have a few more having to do with quantity. So multus aum means many or much. There's actually a comparative of that, which is more. And actually, that's weird because you actually only use more as in the neuter, okay, plus the genitive, more of something. It's a partitive genitive. I'll explain it a bit later. And then plurimus is the most, okay, very much. Okay. Also, in the positive, you don't really prior or prius means first or before, more before. Okay, prior pro is actually those are prepositions, but in the comparative you can put them into adjectives. So prior or prius are earlier, before, more before, and then primus means the most before or first, right? So primus is actually a superlative. Superus means above. Okay, in the example I referred to the gods as those above. It's a common substantive in poetry. So super means over or above, right? And so superior means higher, okay, or more over, right? Hence, Lake Superior is not just because it's the biggest lake, but it's because it's the furthest north, right? And then summus means the highest or the most high, right? So like a sum, right? The summit. And then supremus also means kind of the highest, the most above. Okay. Plus, when you want to say more of a masculine or feminine noun, you actually have to use plus the genitive. I'm not sure why I put an equal sign there. It should be plus genitive, sorry. So you use what's called a genitive of the whole or partitive genitive, which we learned. So plus pecunia literally means more of money, but that's how you say more money in English. Okay, and so whether you're using plus the neuter, in which case it works as an adjective, or plus the genitive, this is how you decline it. Okay. And also notice that, yeah, in the plural, you can just use it as an adjective. And so here's how you decline it. It's basically, it's weird because it's like it's an I stem in the genitive plural, but it doesn't, but it has a short E in the singular. So it's kind of a mix. But now you see where e pluribus unum comes from, right? Out of more, one. Okay. And that's it. So hopefully this wasn't too bad, adding on to what we know. And I'll see you next time. Oleci discipuli.